Hey, everybody, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello. Today, I've got Aren Deu with me, and Aren is like my twin across the pond, right? We were talking about this whenever you interviewed me on your show, where we're both into fitness, we're both in real estate, we both quit our jobs cold turkey. We've got a lot of similarities. So, Aren, welcome to the show, my long-lost twin brother.
I'm glad to be here, mate. Thank you. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you for coming on my show as well. We had identical lives. So yeah, it's great to connect.
We really did. So for those in my audience, whenever you hear Aaron's story, you're going to be like, that's basically Chris's story with some slight variations. And Aaron's show is called Find Your Voice Podcast. It's a really good show. Not talking about how to become a singer, right? We talked about that last time. It's not a show about discovering your singing voice or talent. It's about finding your voice in your story, like learning how to tell your story. And so that's like what I'm doing here with this podcast is finding my voice. And of course, Aren helps other people to find theirs as well. So Aren, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are and where you want to go next. I know that's basically your
Yeah.
whole life, right? So take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't teach you how to sing. That's something that I haven't quite mastered just yet. But I mean, if we look at my life now, we kind of work backwards. I'm doing similar stuff to yourself. So you mentioned it. I'm in property, same as you call it real estate. And that's pretty much pays my bills and it's where I invest a lot of my time and energy. But alongside that, I've been a personal trainer for 9 years. Health and fitness is really, really important to me. Also mental health as well. So that's been something that's touched my own personal life in terms of my family and myself. So I'm a huge advocate for trying to help people not just be happy with their bodies, but also with their mind as well. And that's where I really enjoyed your stuff because you do some incredible stuff on mindset. And I think the quality of our mind and how we look after our brain is so, so important. But before that, I mean, 4.5 years ago, I went into this entrepreneurial space and I just wasn't ready for it, if I'm honest. So I come from a very academic background. I went to school, I got a degree, I did a master's, and I was always just taught to do something and I would do it. When you come into this space, you have to almost discipline yourself because nobody's telling you what to do.
Right.
So you're
That's
making
the hardest part.
mistakes. Absolutely. You're making mistakes. You're doing things. Half the time I'm doing stuff and I'm thinking, is this even the right thing? Is this going to actually move me forward every day? So it was years of literally sleepless nights, stress. But two things I had persistence. I'd always continue to keep going. That's just something within myself. Always, if I have a goal, I'm not going to stop until I succeed effectively. And the other thing was, and it's actually turned out to be a bit of a gift, is that I'm quite lazy by nature. So being very lazy, I'm the quickest way to get to the result. So effectively, even with training, for example, I need to be in and out of that gym within the hour. So I'm thinking, how do I maximize compound exercises in, out, quickly? So I'm always looking for little hacks. And then obviously, as you get on this more and more, now it's just about enhancing not just myself on my journey of finding, but connecting with people like yourself. And then more importantly, helping as many people do what we've done, but quicker. I love to see people younger than me and in less time than me and try and time collapse their journeys and be a part of that.
Yeah, that's super similar to me because I remember in college I had a friend and we would go work out together. He wanted to work out 3 hours, we were like swim and then like, dude, we don't got time to do 3 hours a day of the gym. And I did it back then because I had nothing else to do, but now it's all about efficiency. You've got a set limit of hours in the day and you've got to be productive with that time. But I can also relate to you in that when I quit the job, the anxiety and like the sleepless nights, I mean, that's never really been an issue to me. Maybe I was like ignorance is bliss, I was just like so optimistic. Oh, it's going to work. I'm going to figure it out. And that's when I had savings in the bank. And of course, whenever I had no money and then I realized like, oh crap, I might have to ask my parents for some help. And, that's kind of embarrassing because I had been supporting myself for so long that now I'm like, I can't even go on vacation without feeling bad. And so more lately, I guess, especially in real estate with the high demand of transactions that have to close and certain things that have to happen, I've been feeling that feeling of like your heavy chest and just small, short breaths and things like that. So I'm sure that's kind of similar to what you were feeling. And it's very important in that time to meditate, to take time for yourself, to make sure your mental health and your physical health is actually there, and that you're prioritizing yourself, putting the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help others, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. But when I first started, I was always trying to, I thought that was a badge of honor because I thought the harder I worked, for example, I wasn't giving myself time off when I was consistently trying to achieve this goal. And now I've gone full circle, and it's kind of the things I used to think were weak are actually going to make, such as the self-love, for example. So now I have a day off when I need it. I have that bit of compassion with myself. If I need help, I'll ask for it. But again, it's a process. We go through it. And nobody is as raw and honest as you just said there, Chris. You just mentioned having to be in that position where you may need to ask for a little bit of money, for example. And we don't see that on Instagram. We don't see the behind the scenes. We see the money, we see the cars. And what I always try and do is be fully transparent and say, this game, anyone can achieve whatever they want to achieve. I agree with that over a long enough period of time. But one thing I will say is that you have to be cut from a bit of a different cloth in terms of you've got to be willing to, one, take risks. You've got to be willing to work hard. You've got to be willing to improve your mindset, for an example. And you've always got to try and be willing to just learn and develop as a human being, if that makes any sense. So it's been a massive, massive shift for me because I'm definitely not the person I was 5 years ago. If you criticize me then, I'm not talking to you because I would get in a mood and I'd have a lot of ego. Whereas now it's like, actually where I can improve. Let me become the better version of myself.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I just had a conversation with some mastermind friends here last night, and they said the same thing. They got a 1-star review for their business from a picky client, and they were really trying to make things right with this guy. The guy was showing me the text messages like, "Hey, sir, we appreciate your feedback. It's going to make us a better business. We really appreciate your constructive criticism. Let us know what we can do to make it right." And the guy replied back to, as a communications company, you guys have certain deadlines and expectations, and you just dropped the ball, and I've already moved on. He came back with like a kind of rude response. And my friends, the business owners, they still tried to pursue again and said, "I understand, sir. Again, we really appreciate the feedback. It's going to help us grow and get better." And they were just coming back with that learner's mindset. Like, what can we do to improve this experience? What can we do to salvage this relationship? And through consistency and from some persistence, I guess, even when the guy said, "No, too bad, I already moved on," 5 days later, the guy came back and said, "Hey, are you guys willing to have a conversation to see if you can make this relationship,
I love
right?"
that.
And so it was just super powerful when I heard that story, because I would have been like, man, screw this guy with this mean response and just moved on to the next thing. But the fact that they persevered, they were able to turn that into constructive criticism and then like salvage that relationship and that client.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic way of thinking of it. I like to think actually, Chris, I think you would probably do that now because I know your mindset's great as well.
Right,
and I probably would do that as well. But still, to come from
it can be tough though.
Absolutely. And this is something that we all have to kind of go through at some stage if we really want to become the people we want to become, because it is just about learning. It's just feedback. Just see it as feedback. Don't see it as something negative. Also, don't take it personally. It's just the event and its perspective on that event. So I try and always take myself out of my body and just view the situation as it is. And then that just easier. Whereas before, everything was a personal attack to me and that just wasn't serving me. So, you live and learn.
Definitely. And I think the term that people use is you have to be coachable. You've got to be willing to take feedback. And sometimes people are going to give you feedback and I'll push back. I'm sometimes like, hold on, I don't think that's fair because let me see, I see it this other way, right? But absolutely. I can remove myself from the situation. Like you said, you kind of like have that out of body experience where you're like, okay, I agree with you here. I could have done that better. But to be fair, I think I did the best thing I could with the information I had in this other situation. So that's just, I think that's very interesting that you and I have both evolved over the last few years to be
absolutely, man. Like I said,
defensive.
We're twins.
Yeah, because before I would be like, oh my gosh, screw this person. They're just, saying I did it wrong. I could have done it better. And I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to improve. I thought you can't be the person who thinks you know it all because you don't. We've got to have a learner's mindset and be the dumbest person in the room in that you always want to learn. If you're the person who knows everything and you're like, I already know that, I don't need to learn anymore, you're not going to grow because you're shutting your mind off to new opportunities.
Absolutely. Love that analogy, the learner's mindset. And just obviously I do real estate estate for probably most of your listeners. And one of the things in my first few years was obviously I was finding my feet. Then I got quite good at what I was doing. And then what I was realizing was I just wasn't excelling as quickly as I should have. So it was very, very kind of slow and steady. And I kind of thought I could just jump back into a normal job, probably earn the same amount of money, partake, for less stress. But then I thought I need to level up. And this was a big thing for me to be around people who were a lot cleverer than me. Because obviously ego, you get imposter syndrome, you start to feel a bit anxious thinking, can I add any value into this circle or in this network? And I know
Right.
you have your own sort of masterminds as well, but I bit the bullet because again, I want to become this person up here who I always have this vision of that I can become if I continuously learn and do better and better each day. So long story short is I got myself around a team now and we're doing some big projects now back to back that are beyond my wildest dreams. They're fantastic life-changing projects, but I'm honestly saying when I sit on that table, I am the most clueless person in terms of what they're talking about because I'm just like, what is going on here? And I'm just sitting there like, how do I add value to this? But then at the same time, and hopefully this helps a bit of the listeners, you all have a gift. And, you know, I say this on my podcast, but we all have something that we can bring to the table. So very often we put pedestal, for example, if somebody's got more money or if they've got more experience in a particular industry. But then what you need to do is do a bit of self-reflection and look at yourself. So I looked at myself and I thought, actually, my ability to communicate with people and build a rapport and raise finance, that's going to be very useful here. So long story short, last 6 months I've been working, doing a lot of networking with people that I know who have money that they don't know what to do with. And as a result of that, I've just raised £500,000 in our money just for these two projects. So when I'm sitting on that table and we've got all these masterminds doing incredible things in real estate, I was like, hey guys, I can help with the funding here. And then all of a sudden I became everyone's best friend. And I felt
You
a
added
bit
value.
like,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's all about adding value. So it doesn't necessarily need to be money, or it could just be that you're willing to just work hard and just try and help that person. So it was a great lesson for me. And now I'm definitely in a position where these guys are way better than me because of the property sector. But I have other expertise such as the social media side where I'm quite active in terms of raising finance and stuff. So it's just complemented each other really, really well.
That's awesome. And sometimes it takes a little bit of struggling. And I actually just talked about that on the podcast that I released today before we got on this call. And it's you've got so much feedback from people, so much advice. You ask 10 people for what they think about a certain decision you're going to make, you're going to get 10 different responses. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a terrible idea. Oh, you shouldn't do that. It didn't work for my cousin. They tried that and it didn't
Yeah.
work. Or yeah, this person did it and now they're a millionaire. So you're very confused at like, I think you mentioned it earlier too on this call is like, how do you know what the right step is? And you're trying things and you're learning and you're failing forward, but sometimes your mind hasn't seen the opportunity until you try enough things where you're like, that's the thing that I need to focus on, or that's the thing that I can add value to others with. And for you, it was the funding and the networks and the relationships. And even, I don't know if you figured it out with your podcast. I've still been, after 2 years, I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm adding as much value as I can. I had no idea or intention of monetizing it. I just knew that if I gave enough value, if enough people loved the message, I could figure it out later, you know? And that's kind of where I'm at
Absolutely.
now, where opportunities are coming up. You know, I get to meet awesome people like yourself, my twin on the other side of the world.
Absolutely.
What time is it over there right now in your time?
6:15 in the evening.
Okay, 6:15 in the evening. Over here in Houston, it's just 15 minutes past noon, or 16 minutes, whatever. So yeah, 6 hour time difference. And the fact that we're both having this conversation and we're working on similar goals, but we're still pushing ourselves, and
Absolutely.
it's crazy, right? And I guess tell me a little bit more about, are you doing a lot of personal training still now? I think I remember your website was, you have your Find Your Voice podcast, mental health, personal training. Like, what does your day look like today?
Yeah. So I, again, going back to my earlier point, I try and be the laziest property investor I can be. So by lazy, what I mean is if I can get all the masterminds around me and project manage that. So project management was my first degree and I can just plug them into the right place. I then take my time back effectively. So
Right.
general day, there's certain habits I always do. I always journal, and that's more for my anxiety because it helps control my thoughts. My brain is constantly going 24/7. You know, I always work out, and that's kind of my meditation practice. I shoot as much as I possibly can. So even on like my wallpaper on my phone, the little hack, it'll say something that will remind me to be grateful in that moment. But in terms of my work life, I do probably 2 or 3 days a week full time. I do the podcasting. I spend a lot of time trying to edit and get the best guests like yourself onto my podcast because I just want to help the people. When I get these DMs from complete strangers from across the world saying, this give me a story of hope. This is the blueprint that I need to try and follow. There's no better feeling than that.
That's
In fact,
amazing. Yeah.
that feeling itself.
You can't replace it. Yeah. That feeling itself beats any kind of monetary reward.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. That's why I resonate with you because that's our passion. That's where we get, so excited and that's what fills us. But obviously we need real estate and property to pay our way, to give us the freedom. So that is pretty much 4 days. And then the final 3 days, me and my wife, we finally started something that we tried to design 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, we just got married. And all of a sudden I said, similar to yourself, hey, I'm quitting work. I'm going to go entrepreneurial space. But we always had this idea, and this idea was to create something that would enhance and empower people from an educational standpoint, but also from a product standpoint in terms of their health. So we're just in the process of literally launching a new health product along with the back-end system where there's going to be free gym plans, recipes, and a lot of stuff just to try and help people their health. So we've looked at competitors. I think there's a few in America, but we're looking at the ingredients. And what we're trying to do is give you the best superfood blend in terms of its ingredients that will actually enhance your life. Not just that looks pretty on the cover, not that has so many ingredients, but the small quantities. We're literally trying to give you the best. And that's taken ages. That's taken about 18 months of research, trying to get the right quantities down because we want it affordable, we want it convenient. And on this journey, you know this better than anyone, Chris, it's tiring to get enough energy throughout the day. Because I'm sometimes chugging Monster energy drinks and I'm doing all sorts of weird stuff with my diet. You want something that's natural. There you go, mate.
I got a bang energy drink. These dang things taste so good.
Absolutely. Oh, they're amazing. I had one when I went to Miami just last year. But you'll definitely be like my first person. I'll send you a packet. I'll absolutely try it. Because
yeah, I'd love
we just want to try and put the odds in people's favor. And that's something I'm really excited for now. So I'll work 3 days on that. But long story short is I've given myself that freedom from just working really hard, making more mistakes than people, but learning from it, having that learner's mentality to just be humble enough to say, okay, I made a mistake. Let's learn from this now. How can I get better next time? And here I am, just happy, just speaking to you at 6:15 on a Friday night, whereas 4 years ago, I'd be out in the pub getting drunk and talking about how good I could have been.
I love that. I think the last time that we talked as well, it was on a Friday when I was on your podcast.
Absolutely.
And I think it was late over there for you too. And even another guy that I just interviewed recently, I think he was based in the Netherlands. And it was late night on a Friday when we talked because my booking schedule for my podcasts, I only have Fridays open right now just so I can have some kind of idea of like, okay, Friday's my podcasting day. Mm-hmm. And same thing, he wasn't out clubbing or at the bars. I think once you're on this journey, once you open up that self-help, you start reading those books and you start doing morning routine, wow, you'd rather meditate instead of go out and wake up with a hangover. You're like, no, I got to wake up early. I got stuff to do tomorrow on the weekend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's exciting to wake up and follow your dreams, especially when you have control over it as well. That's empowering for me, at least. Yeah.
There's a really cool, I'm sure you've heard of Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. There's a motivational clip that I heard where he's like, I don't need an alarm clock. My motivation and my dreams wake me up, or my passion wakes me up. And I was like, that's amazing. I mean, I still need an alarm clock. Apparently yesterday I hit snooze. My girlfriend, she saw that I hit snooze and she didn't tell me. And I slept 30 minutes later than I wanted to. And I was like, oh man, my morning routine, I should be halfway done by now. But I think one tip for people who hit snooze, move your phone further away. So she was like, why is your phone, is your phone supposed to be over here? It's like on the floor in the corner. I was like, yeah, that's so that this doesn't happen again. I need to wake up when my alarm goes off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I see there because most of the time I get away with having an alarm clock or I don't really snooze, but there are definitely days when I'm just like, I need that extra 30 minutes, 40 minutes just to stay there. So if anyone's on this journey, don't think that we don't have bad days as well, or we don't have days where as good as we maybe should be. Should always remember that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you feel this way as well. Everybody who starts the entrepreneurial journey seems to have this issue, is that it's when you have a day job, at least what time you're off and you can turn your mind off and switch over to being at home. If you work from home sometimes, or you basically take your laptop to coffee shops or wherever, or right now I'm recording this from my brokerage office, my real estate office, it's hard to turn it off. You know, I'm sitting there with my girlfriend at dinner, but I'm checking emails. I'm not really 100% there with her, and I don't know when do I actually turn it off. When do I watch TV without focusing on work or checking my emails as they come up? Because the problems are always there, right? So how do you do that in your life now? Are you pretty good at separating work from personal life and like time blocking, or do you
Yeah,
struggle with that as
that's a great.
well?
I think that's a great question. So I was doing everything that you just said that I was doing. So effectively, at my last house, my laptop was my job. So wherever I saw my laptop, that was my job.
Yep.
And I worked from home. So home felt like an office more so than an actual home. We've done since we moved into this place, which was at the start of December last year. I have a separate room just for my office. So this is where I do my podcasting. This is where I do my property work. And so when I come into here, I'm in work mode. Whereas as soon as I
Perfect.
leave and we have lunch, we have breakfast, we have dinner. So the wife's come out of work now as well to focus on the business. We present. And I'm very, very, I'm probably the worst person. I've always got this in my hand. It's
Yeah, I was
constantly on
gonna
charge
say
as well.
this is the freaking portable computer. That's the problem these
Exactly.
days. It's in your
It's
pocket.
dangerous. It's dangerous. And we just set guidelines. So the wife and I will say, the moment we eat, nothing is that serious that you can't wait 5 or 10 minutes. So
Right.
we're just present. We'll eat dinner together. We always have breakfast together. And then what I try and do is, so after this podcast now, today's an anomaly. So I've got another podcast for mental health afterwards. We're on the radio station actually. But
Awesome.
normally after 7 o'clock, that's it. I'm done. I'm not checking my phone. Unless it's the football scores, I'm not doing anything on my phone. And it's just time and just being present, because we work so hard, and I'm sure you're the same, Chris, that all of this would be for nothing if we don't get to spend it with the people that we love. So
Yeah,
I was guilty of missing that, and now I'm trying to get that back as well.
that's so true. And that's the entrepreneur's curse, I guess, is because we're so driven. We want to be successful. We want to put everything we can into something that we forget the whole purpose. The whole reason we got into this is for the lifestyle freedom to enjoy the time. And I think I've heard this before is that, or one thing that I've heard before that I like is that an entrepreneur will work 80 hours for themselves to avoid working 40 hours for someone else, because it feels like you got to do twice the work to make something happen out of nothing when there's nobody else supporting you. Sometimes there's no boss to tell you what to do. It's all up to you, whether something's successful or not. It falls on your shoulders. That's kind of tough for
Absolutely.
some people to handle.
Absolutely. I find that quite tough, especially being quite a lazy person by nature. So one of the things I used to do is reframe it. So the ability to just go to the gym or have a drink with the wife. We had a drink last night. We just went to the pub, and we just had 2 drinks. And I was like, these little things, when I do them, it kind of makes me feel like I'm in control of my life and it's all worth it. So to have that flexibility where if I want to have the morning off, obviously then my entrepreneurial mind kicks in. I'm like, you're not having that morning off. You need to be doing work. But
Yeah,
I think just reframing stuff and not seeing it as a bad thing that you're necessarily working more. In fact, what you're doing is you're designing the life that you want. And as long as you can be happy on that journey. So the fact that I've managed to get my wife out of work now, to property and real estate, that's brilliant for me. So now I don't mind working 100 hours because she can be by my side every single day. So we just have to be conscious that in that process, we try and enjoy it. We can, even if it's the little things like being able to go to the gym whenever you want, breaking up your day, lunch hour, whenever you want, not when you're managing, not being
right.
stuck in traffic, for example. I think little things like that have really helped me move forward.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I don't know if you are you a morning workout person, or you said you work out in the morning as part of your routine?
Absolutely. Anything past 12 o'clock noon, then I
Is
start getting lazy and I start
Yep.
thinking of excuses.
Yeah, same here. I used to work out in the evening all the time. I actually went yesterday at 5:30 in the evening because I ended up getting a phone call and someone was waiting for me at a house and I didn't know that that was going to happen. So I ran out of the door and I was like, man, it just kind of interrupted my day because I was still in my sweatpants and like did my morning routine and just did my journaling, and then I got the text saying so and so thought you were meeting at 7:30 at the house, and it was already like 8 or 8:15. I'm like, oh boy, I got to go meet them. So I worked out in the evening and I just was more drained. I had a headache. Whenever you work out in the morning when you're fresh and you have all that energy off of a good night's sleep, It's just so amazing. And then also the rest of your day opens up. So I actually start to go to the gym around probably 7 or 8 in the morning. And usually it starts to get less busy because some people go before they go to the work day, the people who are like overachievers, I guess, that have the full-time jobs. But by 8, they've got to get in the car and start driving to work, or even earlier because they're supposed to be in the office. And so I get the gym to myself versus the evenings where it's just everyone's trying to go, it's crowded, you're
Absolutely.
tired, you can't get a workout in. So it's all about setting the tone, but the control of your schedule is something that most people who work, 9 to 5, which is probably more like 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 if you count traffic, they don't get to do that. You can't tell your boss I'm going to come in at 9. I'm going to the gym first. see
Absolutely.
see how well that conversation goes over, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the main things that I, especially for the first few years, that just having that ability to control it. Because like yourself, if I have to work out in the evening, it's not the same, especially when it's busy and I want to be in and out within the hour. And I'm
Yeah,
having to wait, and then and I'm just like, I don't want none of that.
yeah, and even parking situation if you're driving to the gym, it's just everything gets
Absolutely.
more difficult, and the excuses can pile up, and you'll ultimately skip or say I'll just do it tomorrow, which doesn't happen. um, I guess with your entrepreneurial journey, what's been one of your biggest challenges that you've overcome, or maybe even a big challenge that you're facing right now? What are you working towards right now?
Yeah. So what I'm doing now, it really is an entrepreneurial business. So it's starting a business from scratch. Very, very new to me. So I'm lucky my wife's with me. So my wife is an entrepreneur than myself. So she's a pharmacist by trade. But long story short is she had an injury from work. And within that 2 months, just started a business like that. And that business is still today. So having her by me definitely helps. But one of the biggest things that I've learned, and I guess I struggled with in my early years, was the growth mindset. That's why I'm so fascinated by mindset. And I love the stuff that you do as well, because I always believe that we are given a set potential on stuff. And I always believed that my whole life. So I was like, you're either an academic or you're an entrepreneur, or you're good at lifting weights, for example, or your body's this way. I just believed everything was already decided. And so
Right.
one of the biggest challenges was having to shift that completely. So almost forget about everything I learned for 28 years of my life. And then for the last 5 years, I am now, I've completely changed that. And I truly, truly believe that over a long enough time period, if we put the work in, we can literally become anything. So I'm now starting this new venture. And although I don't know the answers, I know it's coming from the heart. I know me and my wife are so passionate about what we've done. It's taken years of thinking and researching, and we're going to throw everything into it. So it's going to be a brand new experience. There's probably going to be way more challenges. So maybe in 6 months' time, I can have a whole list of all the stuff that I've struggled with or we've had to overcome. But I'm excited time because I have that belief now that I'll figure it out. Somebody else has done it, and I can do that too. So I've always got that mentality now moving forward.
Yeah, that's extremely important to have that mentality, the growth mindset. And I think you read Mindset by Carol Dweck. Have you read that book?
I love that book.
Yeah,
Absolutely love that book.
that's such a good book. And the growth mindset, it's something that I actually started hearing about more from Tom Bilyeu on impact theory. And I kind of thought similarly to you too, right? I wasn't like the tallest person ever. You hear like, oh, that person's super tall. They're going to play basketball. They're good at that. They're super athletic. And there are the anomalies, the people who are like, whoa, that guy's the same height as me and he can dunk and he can like jump over someone. Like I thought it wasn't possible, but this person's doing it and he just worked hard enough at it. He practiced, he kept jumping, trying his vertical, and now he can do slam dunk at like 5 foot 10 inches. And I forget I know we use feet and inches over here in the US, so I'm
Yeah.
sorry for your UK audience.
That's
They're like,
fine. I
what?
got it.
You got the conversions, but yeah. So it's just incredible to see what you can do if you set your mind to something, and then if you truly believe it. Because if you limit yourself and you say, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm not smart enough to do that," or your teacher might have told you that you're never gonna make it to some school that you want to go to, or you're just gonna become a failure. Luckily, I don't think I ever had teachers tell me that, but I hear stories of people who said their teacher told them they were never gonna make it. Like telling a kid that, and then the kid believing that. Imagine them going their whole life believing that they couldn't do something because they believed it from an adult who they assume knows the answers. And I'm sure even if you had any of that happen that you can't remember, like somewhere in your subconscious, those things hold us back from accomplishing our potential, because deep down we're thinking like, can I really be successful? Is that level of success for me, or is it for others to enjoy? And that's when you get around other people, I guess, right? You start to level up your mastermind. You see the level of wealth that they have, and that they came from a similar background to you. I think it changes everything, and it changes your perspective entirely.
Absolutely, mate. That's why now even I'm conscious of the people I view on Instagram, for example, or the people I listen to on Facebook. It has to be somebody that's going to add something to that time. And just on what you said earlier, I think it's such a bad thing. And I don't think, I'm not sitting there pointing the finger at people who do this, because again, you don't know what you don't know. But just somebody who's so young and telling them what they can and cannot achieve based on nothing, based on just your opinion, is such a dangerous thing. So I had a brilliant guest on my show last week, and she mentioned something, and she said, when you have a thought, think about two things. The first is this thought mine? Because most likely it's probably not. It's probably your teachers or your parents,
Yeah.
or somebody around you. And secondly, is it true? Like factually true? And the chances are, and if you can just break that down and be aware of that, your life is going to be so much better. Because otherwise, creating an environment based on the opinions and the ceilings of potential of other people, and that's such a dangerous place to be in. And I know I've had that. I've not had it from teachers, but I've had it from family. I've had it from friends. So growing up, I always believed my ceiling, my corporate job, which I got at 25, and that salary, and then a 2.5% raise every single day until I'm 65, and then I die with a wife and two kids. Kind of the life I had. But again, like you mentioned, it's exposure. So when you're exposed to people, so you touched on Eric Thomas earlier. I've been following Eric Thomas for about 11 years. I went and seen him when he came to the UK 11 years ago. And one thing I love about him is he's not showing like the fake perception. He's always just been honest in his podcast. His podcasts are absolutely wicked. And he's always showing growth. And now all of a sudden he's a multi-millionaire, and he's absolutely killed it. And you learn that watching his journey. I'm almost following it myself. So I feel like I'm 4 years behind him, almost on that same thing. He stay true to his values. He consistently works, and he speaks a lot about exposure. So if you see somebody doing something like from similar background to yourself, or who was a high school dropout, for example, it gives you that element of hope. And this is what I try and do on Find Your Voice. I just try and give someone a blueprint so they don't have an excuse. I want to take people's excuses away, including my own. So I can't sit there and say, well, for me. Actually, no, it's not difficult for me. It's more difficult for other people who have done it.
Yeah. And the victim mindset is something that I've really been strongly against in my own life, because I talk about it on a previous episode. Like, I dated a person who had a victim mindset and was always saying everything happens to her. It was kind of like negative energy that was attracted, where 3 bad things would happen in 1 week, like getting a speeding ticket, scratching the side of her car and like another car in a parking lot, and then like failing a test. And it's just whenever you start to be in that mindset of like, everything always happens to me, life's not fair, you start to look at all the bad things happening in your life versus all the good things that you should be grateful for. Because no matter where we are all at, I think you and I talked about this too, in terms of traveling on the podcast, where you see other people who have so much less than you in other countries. And when you're out, in some places like in Thailand and stuff, there's little children running around in the dirt on the streets, and they're having a blast. They're smiling, like the dogs are wagging their tails, like everybody's happy. And you're thinking like, how can they be happy, like eating food, like, I don't know, such small amounts, and like living like that in those conditions? Or for those who've been to India, I've been to India, and there's so many homeless people out there, and you see people laughing and smiling and playing, and you're just like, whoa. You would have thought that like they'd be unhappy, or like it's a terrible predicament. And yes, life can be hard for some people, but it really just shifts your entire paradigm when you're like, if they're happy with what they have or how little they have, I have nothing to complain about, right?
I think about that all the time. And I was doing a bit of research, actually. I think it was off a podcast. And then I always listen to a podcast. I'll hear something amazing, and then all of a sudden and start researching or trying to.
Yep.
And they were talking about happiness in terms of the key things that actually help increase your levels of happiness. And number 1 was relationships, and number 2 was purpose. And when I sat back and thought about it, and I thought from where I came from, and I never came really, really low poverty, but I came from a humble background where we just had enough money just to get through life. And I see my mom working 90 hours a week, pretty much her whole life. I had to work very, very young to help support as well. My relationships were amazing. My relationships with my siblings, with my cousins, with my family was amazing. My friends as well. I've still got them best friends now till this day. So I always had that. At the same time, no matter what I've always done, I've always thought of myself as having some purpose. I've always felt I've had a purpose. So indirectly, I was always happy without realizing. And that's why, like, I always say, like, money now is coming into my state business and I'm doing well financially. And the next few deals are going to be absolutely incredible. But no amount of zeros will genuinely change my levels of happiness. The only thing that'll make me happy is if I can get someone to cook my food for me, because that's a bit of a time constraint. But generally
Yeah.
speaking, that's so minute in the grand scheme of things. And I think the system almost that I've learned that so quickly, because I don't want people chasing money and then forgetting about this thing called life until then. You can still chase that money, you can still acquire that money, but you've got to enjoy the moments along the way.
That's so true. And there's some quotes along the lines of like some people chase the money for financial freedom or something, and then at the end of their life they're trying to pay for their health because they never lived and now they're dying and they've chased this thing their entire lives only to realize that the money was never the thing and they missed out on the actual life and the experiences and the present moment. So you said you had relationships and purpose growing up. What was your purpose, and has that changed at all? Like what did you see your purpose as being when you were growing up?
Yeah, great question. So my purpose has always been about helping people. And the reason I say that is because I got first row seats at watching my mom do the same thing.
Yeah.
My mom was like my role model growing up. She's always helping people. She was a nurse, a healthcare assistant. She went in and fostered kids. She adopted kids. So she was always showing me how it should be done. And I always looked at her, and although we had no money growing up, she was always happy. And she was always making people around her happy as well. So almost like without doing the same things. And I'd always get that extra level of happiness when I was able to help somebody or go out of my way for him. So even throughout my careers, whether it was personal training, for example, becoming a social worker and trying to help children in care, to even real estate, giving people homes, making sure as a landlord, I'm responsible for giving them a home that I could put my own mother in. All these little things matter in terms of even our new health business now. I always say there's a great quote. I think Robin Sharma, if you don't make time for health now, then you got to make time for illness later on. So that's really important for me as well. So my purpose has always been to kind of serve, and that's why I leave a lot of money on the table, especially in real estate in the UK. I have a bit of a profile in terms of property within this industry. I could create a course tomorrow, and NLP practitioning courses trying to make you buy something that I know down it takes a lot more work than that, but it doesn't
Right.
use. So for me, I will leave that on the table. I will continue doing what I do because that's what fulfills me. That's what makes me happy. And then I encourage everyone to maybe just moments and sit back and think, who am I? Who am I and who aren't I? And then basically try and become that person, because so often either given a narrative of where we should go or what we should become. And then often we forget our own purpose. And I think our purpose is we develop over time. I think we need exposure to many things. For all we know, we could be the greatest cooks in the world, but we've never tried cooking. So I'm just at this point now where the podcast allows me to give that purpose, speaking with people like yourself on your platform, which I'm really grateful for, on my own platform as well. And just obviously through this health thing, just trying to make sure that I I do the lesson, that my mom taught me when I was growing up.
That's crazy. Yeah, what you said right there is so true. And I heard that recently. For example, Michael Jordan, he was cut from the high school team or whatever, right? I mean, one of the
Yeah,
greatest basketball players, arguably, of like all time. And what if he had quit? What if he was like, I'm no good at basketball? We wouldn't know who he was. He wouldn't have achieved all those things. He wouldn't have been on Space Jam and all that back in the day. And for all
absolutely.
we know, we could have that always the what if is always like terrifying to me, right? And I think people think of that with relationships, like what if this person isn't the one? What if that person's like, I'm supposed to go on this trip and meet them? And I think it's not like you have the one for relationships. So you find someone you love and you love each other and you share similar values and then you make it work, right? It's not like you can't always be thinking what if, because
Yeah,
you need to try new opportunities in careers and stuff, but you can't be wondering like, what if? Because right now I'm in real estate. But what if I could have been really good at soccer, or what you guys call football? We call it soccer over here, and everyone's always like,
Yeah,
no, it's football. But
football.
yeah, you're like, no, it's football. But what if I could have been a really good football player, but I quit the classes, and when I was in fifth grade, I just stopped playing, and then I started playing basketball, and now I'll never know, and now I'm not going to be a footballer. But I could be very good at podcasting. But it kind of goes back to what you said earlier. Like, you firmly believe anyone can achieve anything if they just stick with it long enough. And I think that's the key, is that you find what you love and you make it work. You just stick with it long enough where it works. There's no other option.
Absolutely. That's the number one. I think I actually got that from Tom Billieu. So you mentioned him earlier. I see him like a mentor. I've been following him for years, and I'm part of the Impact Theory University as well.
Awesome.
So they do some incredible stuff, because I think in terms of mindset, one of the things I loved about him, and this is why I love your honesty earlier on as well, was he talks about a time in his life where he was lazy and he went into this entrepreneurial space. Wife would go to work and he would just sit there and watch television. And I was like, I've had those days as well. And, you know, at that point, obviously I would never admit that, because I would almost be embarrassed, if I'm being honest, but it was the truth of it. Some days I just didn't know what I was doing with my time. And when he said that, and to see how much of his life, it gives me, again, hope. It gives me inspiration that, yes, I can do the same. Maybe not to the same scale as Quest, for example, but in my own scale. And again, I'm not driven to have a certain amount of money. I just need enough money to obviously do things that I want to do.
Absolutely. And it's not like we're going to arbitrarily get to a certain number, because even one of my goals, I mean, everyone wants to be like a millionaire by 30 is like an easy goal. I think Gary Vee was like talking about that, how everyone's goal is to be a millionaire by 30, and then they're crushed if they don't hit it. But even if you were to become a millionaire at 30, like, that doesn't really, like, great. What next? You're going to want more. You're going to want the next goal. So I don't think it should be like a monetary target as your end all be all. But I mean, of course you need to push yourself and do the best that you can, but also don't beat yourself up if everyone's got their own journey, right? We're all going at different paces, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you got to make sure we, just stay in the race and finish the race. Don't go so fast that you burn out and you have to drop out halfway through.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Just on that then, so what's your goal then, if you just take it on a max level, like your number one goal for your Chris throughout his life?
Yeah, so my number one goal, and this is a big tough question, because I guess it changes, right? 5 years ago, you asked me my number one goal, it would have been to get a good job probably, and then I got the good job, and then a few years in, I realized that's not my goal. I want more. It changed. And so right now, my number one goal is just I want the financial independence and the passive income monthly, where I think Robert Kiyosaki talks about it. Once your passive income exceeds your expenses, you're essentially retired, because your lifestyle is funded by investments that bring in a certain amount of money every month. And I think at that point, it's like, I don't have to trade so much time for money, because even now it's very transactional. If I'm not working, if I'm not closing deals, I'm not getting paid. I don't quite have a passive income stream that comes in no matter what. And so that kind of limits me a little bit, right? I've got to work and build up my little pile of money so I can go on a trip. And then the pile goes down a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I better save the pile back up, put it into a property. Like, I have a house and I've paid my car off. So I want to be at a place where I can finally start to just, like, if I just want to podcast all the time and I don't want to do real estate anymore, I want to have enough resources where I can just do that, or I can go volunteer, help build schools in Africa, whatever, without worrying. Because obviously money is important. We can't, get around that
Absolutely.
issue. You've got to pay your bills. If you got no money, it's hard to do anything. It's hard to help others. It's like the oxygen mask. You got to put it on first before you can help others. So that's my goal. My one big goal is just financial independence, enough passive income to basically retire. How about yourself? What's your number one goal right now?
So my number one goal now, you might laugh, it's to live to 150. And
That's awesome.
I've just put a number on that, and I've said what I want to do is I not only want to live to 150, but I want to ensure that I live how I'm living now. So I don't want to be 150 with a wheelchair, carers around me 24/7. I want to be fit. I want to be on this mic or whatever we do in the future in terms of getting our message out there to inspire and help people. But I just want to crack that system, because I'm very fascinated by like health and stuff, hence our movement HealthXcel that we're doing, but I just want to life hack it. And then if I can, all the people around me and all the people I love, I'd love to try and bring them up with me. But I know it's going to take a lot of research, a lot of experimenting, but I'm not ready to die just yet. I feel like I've just found my calling, and I'm like, I've just turned 33 and I'm like, why didn't I know this earlier? Now I need more time because there's so many things I want to do. But
Right.
in terms of like finances and stuff to yourself, I think once I hit that threshold number in terms of not having to worry, not having to waste time doing daily house chores, for example, I can then put more time into producing this. I can get more people on the show, and I can just do stuff that, again, that fits with my purpose in terms of what I want to do.
Absolutely. And I just turned my phone face down because I've got a couple missed calls. It's like, these are deals that I'm working on with people who need, like, let's see what this person said. Okay, tracking for check. I don't know. There's a couple of deals that are about to fund, and like the money's about to go through. And
Brilliant.
if
Fingers
I need
crossed.
to be checking it. It's great that they're closing, but like if I don't give them a call after this, after you and I finish this talk, it's like they're going to be waiting on me and they're going to be uncertain. So that's very active income that I'm working for, and like communicating with people. And I want to get to that level, like you said, where I can have that passive income. And then if I want to be here talking to you for 6 hours one day, we can do that because I'm not worried about
Absolutely.
that money that's sitting there. That's like, okay, I got to do something for it to
Absolutely.
finish so that I can get paid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, good luck for those. I hope they come off for you, mate.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they should be closing okay. It's just, I think the one lady's trying to find out where to pick up her keys because she just bought the house. So I'm like, okay, we can figure
That's
that out
awesome.
for you. Um,
Awesome.
but I guess, is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of health, mental health, anything at all that you want my audience to know?
Yeah, I think, again, it's always going to come back to what I do on my podcast. And it is just about encouraging people to just become themselves and find their own voice. And I know that sounds really cliche, and we might be thinking, we've heard all that before. But I just think until we sit back and we really look at ourselves, and like when you're a little child and you always have those dreams of the things that you want to just try or you want to try and become, somewhere along life, we hear opinions of others, or we get told what we can and can't do, and we lose that. So it's
Right.
almost like strip that back. Think about the things that excite you. What are your values? Is it integrity? Is it charity? Is it excitement? It can be anything. And there's no right or wrong here. List those and then try and do like maybe a side hustle towards that. But the most important thing is stop putting a mask on in terms of what you present to the world, because recognizing this helped my podcast massively was the moment I opened up with my vulnerabilities. I'm not afraid to say, as a man, I'll often cry or I get quite emotional when I see people do well, or when I see people when I see bad things as well. I speak about my anxiety quite a lot. I speak about my struggles with anger. So I just expose myself, and that's just to show people that I don't have it all figured out, because sometimes somebody could look at me and think, oh, he's doing great in real estate. He's got a podcast which is hitting whatever it is. And I'm like, that's not even it. I'm still on this journey. I'm still learning myself. So the only advice I'd say is definitely look after your health, because like I said earlier, if you don't make time for that now, then you better make more time for it when you turn ill. And I don't wish that on anyone, because if you think working out's hard now, try it when, you start getting older and your bones start cramping up and your recovery. So take time for your health, not just sleep, but also mentally. So do the stuff that you've mentioned. You've got a lot of hacks, a lot of mindset stuff, meditation, look after your brain health. And that's just kind of being something now that I'm going to push forward in the new business with my wife. We're going to really try and promote stuff. So there'll be a lot of free content there if anyone is interested, obviously, in that as well. I just want to try and help people just live a happier life. And maybe we can all get to 150. Who knows?
Yeah, I would love that. I know Tom talks about that on Health Theory. He's had a few guests that talk about different strategies and things that the rich and the wealthy, well, I guess that's the same thing. The wealthy people are doing. They're starting to, I forget all the terminology. I'm sure you've researched it.
Yeah.
There's different medications and pills and things that people can take, and like procedures to extend and prolong life, which is pretty cool. And I know Tom wants to live forever. So that's definitely a
I don't
lofty
know how I'd
goal.
feel. I don't know how I live in forever, because I think I would struggle seeing so many people around me move on to
Yeah.
wherever they move on. But I love some of the health theory stuff. There's a lot of stuff you can do stuff again. I've written it down. I can't pronounce the stuff, so I'm not even going to try and embarrass
Yeah, I don't
myself on
know.
your show.
But that would be amazing, because you imagine 150 years, like you get so much more life. You can see so many more things,
Absolutely.
because even now, I mean, yeah, we've expanded the life, the limits so much. I remember hearing that like people used to live till like 45 or 50, like that
Yeah,
was average. And even the cavemen, they probably lived till their 20s or something. I don't remember the
absolutely.
exact numbers, but they had terrible health and I guess hygiene. Like they didn't brush their teeth, and their teeth would fall out, and like it was just a very hard life back then. And now we've got dentists and we've got nice braces. We can make our teeth straight, and we can. I had LASIK. I can see, like that's amazing. I don't need glasses or contacts anymore.
Absolutely.
So we've continued to go so far and progress. I can't wait to see where we're gonna go. And hey, keep me posted if you figure out how to live a little longer. I mean, I wouldn't mind
Absolutely.
either going to
Absolutely, mate.
150.
Absolutely. We've both got to keep doing our thing from other sides of the world.
Absolutely. Well, hey, it was really great having you on, Aaron. Where can our audience go to find you and to learn more? And of course, find your voice
Th-
podcast, but where else can they find you?
Thank you, Chris. So again, I'm really passionate about what we're trying to move forward now. So healthxcel.co.uk, the website, it should be live hopefully in a month or two. That's health, the letter X, CEL, so .co.uk. We've just missed the E out. Send you all links. And what we're going to do is try and give as much free information in that, just even for beginners, just to learn how they can literally start putting the odds in their favor from an initial standpoint. Or if you want to just follow the my world, sorry, let me try and get my words out, then follow me on LinkedIn. I think we're connected on LinkedIn. So
We
LinkedIn,
are.
it's a mismatch of pretty much everything I do. So you're either going to see health stuff, you're going to see property stuff, you're going to see podcasting stuff. It's very random. My life's not that exciting, but if any of it is of interest, then please do drop by, and I'm always happy to engage. But thank you as well. Thank you for obviously allowing me on your platform as well. And it was great to connect with you when you came on my show. I had so much great feedback from your show as well. You helped so
Awesome.
many people, especially with your downloads and stuff as well. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing, mate.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's awesome just having other, like-minded people on the show and to get perspective from across the world. Like I've talked to people in the Netherlands. I actually just talked to someone from Germany like an
Wow.
hour or two ago. And now, of course, where exactly did you say you're based out of right now?
So I'm in Birmingham. That's in England.
Okay, in England. And you said you just recently, you love to travel, right? You guys went on a trip to Japan here recently as well, last year or something?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So I finally ticked off my last destination for my bucket list. So we went to
Perfect.
Japan. We went to Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka.
Oh, I
One
love
of
it.
the most amazing experiences ever. I know you. I think you've been as well, haven't you? When we had a conversation last
I
time as well.
have. Yeah, I've been to
Unreal place.
I've been to Tokyo. I saw Mount Fuji. It was just so
Yeah,
beautiful. It's
unreal.
just the feeling that you get when you're traveling and your mind is expanded to so many things outside of what your norm is. Same thing
Absolutely.
like when you surround yourself with people who are making like 5 times more per month than you, you're like, whoa, I didn't even know that was possible. And this person's figured it out. It just unlocks new levels of your mind. It's incredible.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. It's exposure, and that's why I'm just
Exposure.
grateful to obviously connect with people like yourself as well. And then hopefully in 150 years' time, mate, we'll have our own mastermind, and we may even see each other as well. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, maybe by then we'll have teleportation and stuff, so I don't have to go to the
Absolutely,
airport. I can just like beam over to you through my webcam.
absolutely, absolutely. And we'll do our podcast then. No
Yeah,
problem.
we could do an interview in person. But hey, Aaron, thanks again. And if you want to shoot me over those links, I'll be sure to put in all your links and social media handles in the show notes. And then we can plan for this podcast to go live on Monday, the 2nd of March. And I'll let you know and share all the links once it goes live.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.